Francisco State. She lives in the East Bay and commutes to school on the back of a winged hippopotamus. She is currently working on a novel about a young woman trying to reconcile with her father, a New Age guru living on an ashram in Appalachian, Virginia. Emanuela!
Is this okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So this is an excerpt from that novel, and in this scene, the protagonist is at her father's ashram in a kind of a cafeteria, sort of with the other devotees, and she's trying not to engage with them. Raven descended the stairs to the large dining room on the first floor. Everyone was gathered there for the buffet-style platters that lined the counters. Raven knew the food at her father's trainings were usually hit and miss because the cooks were volunteers who had agreed to help run his trainings for a smaller fee. Volunteer cooks ran the spectrum between skilled gourmet chefs to college students who only knew how to boil lentils and burn quinoa. From the savory smells that wafted up the staircase, it seemed that they had lucked out by getting the former this time. Raven joined the line as it curved around the plates of tabbouleh, pumpkin curry, cucumber yogurt, fresh baked naan, and vegetables marinated in tiki masala sauce. She picked up a chipped plate from the stack of mismatched dishes and quietly joined the line circling the buffet. Ahead of her was a man wearing a crisp button-down shirt he had tucked into his pressed slacks. Raven looked down and saw he was wearing silken black business socks. His feet looked strangely naked without a pair of patent leather shoes. From the way the man looked around, assessing his audience as he looped pumpkin curry onto his plate, it looked like he was about to begin networking. So I saw Claire run out of the room with her hand over her mouth. I was expecting the food wouldn't be any good, but this looks like a pretty good spread, he said. Joy Viveros leaned forward. Claire is a breatharian. What are those? Asked the man with the executive socks. Breatharians have evolved to a higher plane of existence where they don't need to eat. They get their energy from the sunshine and the air they breathe. You mean they photosynthesize? That's not what I heard, said a man across from Raven. His long dark hair was tied in 2 braids, and he wore a leather vest with some Native American beadwork around the collar. Raven and her mom used to call white guys like him Cherahonkies. A buddy of mine was once a caretaker at a breatharian compound. He said their trash cans were filled with Haagen-Dazs rum-raisin ice cream. The executive-looking man laughed. Is that so? Well, in any case, this food looks pretty good. All it needs is a little salt. At this point, Alexander Fizzard leaned into the conversation. You know, a new study just came out that says salt is very bad for the body. I never eat salt. Oh yeah, said the Cherahonki, scooping basmati rice flavored with cloves onto his plate. Around them, other New Agers were leaning in, hoping to glean the latest folksy dietary science. Alexander Fizzard drew himself up to his full 5'10" as the group shuffled forward in line. Salt is deadly, he said. I read in Lotus magazine that scientists have proven that table salt is 70% sodium chloride and only 30% potassium. Raven opened her mouth. Anyone who had taken high school chemistry knew that salt was sodium chloride. That was its chemical composition. But then she shut her mouth again, better not to engage. She shook her head and moved forward in line. Alexander continued. Sodium chloride is a toxic substance that destroys the kidneys and the liver. That's why I only drink wine. It clears out the kidneys and purifies the liver. Wine, said the Cherahonki.
Exactly.
His voice dripping with sarcasm. You don't say. Raven kept her head down and smiled to herself. At least someone around here had a sense of humor. Executive Socks cut in. I don't buy it. I mean, hasn't salt been a valuable trading commodity for centuries? People treat it like gold because they need it to survive. I don't know much about nutrition, but I know our bodies need salt. It's the potassium our bodies need, not the sodium chloride Monsanto's been poisoning us with, Alexander said with absolute authority. I'm telling you, sodium chloride kills. Wine is the only antidote. From behind them, Joy grasped the salt shaker affectionately to her chest. But if I love it enough, it won't hurt me. My love can change its chemical composition so that it won't affect my DNA. Alexander's jaw dropped. Executive Socks had a stunned look on his face. The chair monkey grinned and nudged Alexander in the ribs. Pass the salt, please. At this point, Raven peeled away from the line, looking for an empty spot to sit that wasn't too near anyone else. Her father's devotees had all gathered in clumps. It wasn't like she inherently distrusted them, it's just that she distrusted these ones. Sure, some of them were normal people who would take what her father had to offer, integrate it into their lives, and then move on. The short-timers weren't so bad. It was the people who worshipped her father like he was some kind of god that Raven really worried about. Unfortunately, it was hard to tell who was who, so it was safest to avoid everyone. She spotted an empty table in the corner of the next room, and she began weaving her way past the metal folding chairs and card tables. As she walked, she heard snippets of conversation. To her left, a dreadlocked man wearing a Michael Franti Power to the Peaceful t-shirt was rapping to his table. People ask John, what do you do all day? I white breed people and smoke weed every day. Federal Reserve, fuck that shit. I got my love money, my Buddha bucks, my Babaji dollars. Have a happy life, motherfucker. I released my death urge. Now I'll live forever. Raven suppressed a laugh and continued past that table. As she left the kitchen and wandered into the dining room, she saw Executive Socks take a seat next to a husky woman with platinum blonde hair and skin the texture of smoked jerky. So, Ariana, he said, I hear you communicate with dolphins. Yes, I do, she said. Her eyes were the pale blue color of a tropical lagoon. Did you know that all dolphins are actually extraterrestrials? I'm a little unfamiliar with that theory, Executive Socks said. The dolphins speak to me by showing me acoustic images of their spaceships filled with water. They came from the planet system around the star Sirius, you know. Like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Oh yes, very much like that. The woman leaned forward and whispered, they have even taken me into the future. Executive Socks raised his eyebrows. You don't say. I've been thinking about writing a book about Sasquatch. Maybe you could give me some tips on interspecies communication. Raven kept her eyes in front and continued to weave through the tables. It was at times like these that she didn't feel that guilty about her father fleecing these people with promises of immortality and enlightenment. If they were gullible enough to believe the things that came out of their own mouths, then they deserved what they got. Stupid should hurt, and it should be financial hurt too. Raven sat in the chair closest to the doorway so that if anyone approached, she could bolt out the door. She kept her eyes down on her plate. The faster she ate, the faster she could leave. At the next table over, she heard a woman and a man talking about California. No, my people hail from Des Moines, the man said. Why? An overweight woman with her hair tied in silver braids leaned forward. I just read that some scientist at Stanford says an asteroid is going to hit the Pacific Ocean. He says the tsunamis will be higher than the Golden Gate Bridge, and the entire Central Valley is going to flood. It's going to kill more people than Katrina. Inadvertently, Raven looked up. Her mother was inadvertently just across from the Golden Gate Bridge. Then she caught herself and put her eyes back down on the plate. When is it? The man asked. Raven felt the skin on her arms constrict, a slow drop of sweat down her ribs. Sometime this week, the woman said. I read it in an online forum. He's been trying to get the major news networks to warn everyone, but no one's listening to him. Apparently, he's a really reputable scientist. He's staking his entire reputation on this. The man snorted. So much for free media. The First Amendment went down the toilet in the 80s when the newspapers went public. Wall Street killed freedom of speech. People care more about the share prices than truth these days. I should know. I used to be a journalist. Anyway, a group of us are going to get together tonight to focus our energy on shifting the asteroid's path. Raven set down her fork and raised a shaky hand to feel her throat. She felt the pulsing veins at her fingertips. Her rib cage felt too small, too constricted for her hammering heart. In her mind's eye, she saw a ball of fire like God's fist punching into the earth. Then a wall of water, rising, water boiling, churning black, swallowing the land on its path of destruction. It was too much like the nightmares she used to have when she was little. In her dreams, she would watch the ocean waves turn into claws that seized her parents, dragging them under the water. Meanwhile, she would try to shout, "Look out, run!" But no one would hear her in those awful dreams. She'd started having them when she'd stay up late with her father, watching movies about Nostradamus and the Book of Revelations. She'd wake up in the middle of the night, terrified, her own sweat soaking through the sheets. Now, she lowered her hand back down to the table and felt the cool plastic press against her palm. She took 2 deep breaths and felt her thighs against her chair, the ground supporting her feet. This is crazy, she thought. There's no reason to get excited about some rumor circulating around a New Age ashram. If there really was an asteroid, more people would know about it than some wingnut on the internet. Nothing to lose from equally brave affair. Raven picked up her fork again and resumed eating. When she finished, she wove back to the kitchen where there was a black rubber dish tub near the sink. She carefully stacked her plate and placed her fork with the other forks on a white bucket. Their tines were all pointed upwards, a bouquet of thistles. Just as she was about to leave, she felt a hand on her elbow. "Raven, so nice to meet you," said Gertrude. She was a short woman with stocky legs and narrow shoulders. She wore a knee-length Indian dress with a green and gold scarf draped around her shoulders. Her salt and pepper hair was shaved in a buzz cut that looked like peach fuzz when it caught the light behind her. The hair gave her a severe, extreme look as she pushed her round glasses up on her nose. "So I hear you will be giving a lecture?" "I don't know where anyone got that idea," Raven said. "I'm just here to hang out with my dad, not any of that other stuff." "I see," Gertrude said, nodding. "You know how much I admire your father. I've always believed he was one of the higher angels up there with Archangel Michael." Raven resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Why was it that people fell in love with her dad so much? It seemed like he had love for so many people, but not for his own family. Just then, Gertrude draped her arm around Raven's shoulder. She could hear Gertrude's many rings click together, like insect animals. Raven stiffened. "You know, I always felt that you and I had a spiritual connection," Gertrude said. "My father and I were very close for most of my childhood. But then after my mother died, my father married a woman who was very jealous of me, and she tried to send me away. And when she couldn't do that, she used to beat me." Gertrude's voice was matter of fact. Raven tried to lean away from her. "So I know Orion met someone in Poland, and she's arriving tomorrow. I just wanted you to know that if you need to process your feelings, you can always talk to me." Raven freed herself and coldly thanked Gertrude. She'd never liked her, especially since, during the divorce, her father had made a habit of taking Raven over to Gertrude's apartment to watch TV while he and Gertrude spent time in the bedroom with the door closed. Once, her father had even asked Raven if she would like to have a new mother. Raven didn't want a new mother. She liked her old mother very much, thank you. New mothers need not apply. "Don't take this the wrong way," Raven now said, "but I always thought you and Dad were going to get together. What happened? You had 8 years to get him to tie the knot. Where did you go wrong?" Gertrude visibly recoiled and her mouth pinched, showing crooked teeth. When she spoke again, she jabbed a thick finger into Raven's chest. "You know, you really ought to take some of your father's seminars. It might help you with your problem of projecting emotional baggage onto other people." With that, Gertrude spun and stomped away. Raven smiled to herself. She was about to head up to her room when she noticed the Cherahunky watching her. He stood only a few feet away, an empty plate in his hand, waiting for the dish towel. Had he been there the entire time? "Powerful medicine," the Cherahunky observed. "I didn't think anyone could get under her skin." Raven flushed. Her neck felt hot and exposed. She had been openly cruel to Gertrude, hitting her where she knew it would hurt most. Suddenly she felt embarrassed, and she wasn't sure if it was because of her behavior or because this fake Native American man had caught her at it. She lowered her head and turned to move through the tables toward the staircase up to her room. Around her were the voices of with many tables, buzzing, conspiring, gossiping, with the chattering voices not unlike the buzzing cicada outside. Did you see those Christians parked on the other side of the street? Church sends them out here to pray for us to leave. Bigots. Hateful people like them are what's wrong with this country. Not spiritually evolved enough to see the truth. Did you hear about that congressman in Texas? One will put us back to the dark ages. Laws off my body. I wish the South had seceded. One of these days I'm going to move to Europe where all the civilized people are. Freaks.